They were together for 9 years and married for 2 of them.
Over here and explain it to these kids that it's very doable.
On the surface, Meghan Markle and Trevor Engelson looked like the perfect Hollywood couple. A rising actress with a sparkle in her eyes and a producer with industry respect and connections. But what if I told you that behind the sunlit smiles, the fairy lights, and the glossy photographs, their marriage was already a house built on shifting sand? Because here's the truth. Meghan's first marriage didn't end with heartbreak and compromise. It ended with an envelope in the mail. A set of rings was sent back like unwanted merchandise. And Trevor Engelson, the man who once knew Meghan better than anyone, has quietly started sharing what really happened. And the Meghan he describes? Let's just say, it's not the Meghan from the palace-approved documentaries or glossy magazine covers. Stay with me, because once you hear what Trevor went through, you'll see Meghan Markle's royal saga in a whole new light. Let's rewind. It's 2004. Meghan Markle is still hustling in Hollywood, grinding out auditions, picking up blink-and-you'll-miss-it roles on shows like CSI, doing a stint as a briefcase girl on Deal or No Deal, and padding her resume with the occasional Hallmark movie. She's ambitious, hungry, and determined to break through, but at this stage, she's still one of 1,000 aspiring actresses trying to make it in LA. And then she meets Trevor Engelson, not a struggling actor, not some B-list wannabe chasing the same dream. Trevor is already on the other side of the curtain, a legitimate Hollywood producer with credits to his name, respected by peers, and most importantly connected. For Meghan, this was more than just a boyfriend. It was a golden ticket, an insider who could open doors she couldn't even knock on yet. But here's the thing. Those who knew Trevor say he wasn't calculating about it. He wasn't using her, he wasn't cynical. He was smitten, completely taken in by her charisma, her self-assuredness, that mix of charm and drive that made her stand out in a room full of hopefuls. To him, Meghan wasn't just another actress. She was different. Their romance stretched for 7 years, 7. In Hollywood time, that's practically a lifetime.
And Trevor swears it was like a switch flipped. Friends, replaced, mentors, gone, even family.
Finally, in 2011, they made it official. A destination wedding in Jamaica. Picture it, the sun setting over the ocean, barefoot vows in the sand, cocktails flowing, reggae beats pounding through the night. Guests described it as a non-stop celebration, part wedding, part beach party, part Hollywood getaway. On the surface, it was everything you'd want from a love story. But beneath the music and the laughter, something else was already brewing. Trevor would later admit the cracks were there long before the champagne ran dry. Small fissures, easy to ignore in the glow of the honeymoon phase, but destined to widen with time. Now here's where the story takes a sharp turn. According to Trevor Engelson, Meghan wasn't the wide-eyed underdog she likes to paint herself as today. She was sharp, strategic, ruthlessly ambitious. Trevor describes a woman who treated the relationship more like a balance sheet than partnership. Every favor, every compromise, every sacrifice, it wasn't just appreciated, it was tallied and logged away like ammunition, ready to be pulled out when it suited her. That's not romance. That's accounting. And eventually, those kinds of calculations start to drain the warmth from any marriage. Then came Meghan's big break, Suits. For the first time, she wasn't a background extra or a fleeting cameo. She was a series regular, with real screen time and recognition to match. Suddenly, Meghan wasn't just another struggling actress in Los Angeles. She was flying to Toronto for months at a time, living in a new city, building a new circle, basking in the glow of her first real taste of stardom. And for Trevor, it was like watching the ground shift beneath his feet. The woman who had once leaned on him for guidance, for connections, for stability, now barely needed him at all. He would fly out to visit, eager to be part of her new world, but instead felt like a guest in his own wife's life. She was glowing, thriving, reinventing herself into someone new. And Trevor, he wasn't part of the reinvention. He was baggage, a leftover from the struggling years, a reminder of a past she seemed eager to shed. Plenty of couples survive long-distance marriages. But Trevor insists Meghan didn't even try. To him, she was already halfway out the door before the ink on her Suits contract was dry. Emotionally detached, laser-focused on building her personal brand.
30 when she came into the royal family. She'd had a life, she was an actress, she'd been married before.
What friends would later call Meghan Incorporated. What started as a love story was quietly, almost imperceptibly, turning into a business transaction. And Trevor, he was being phased out of the company. And then came the moment that still stings. How do you end a marriage of nearly a decade? A sit-down conversation? A tearful confession? Maybe counseling? Not Meghan. According to Trevor, he didn't get closure. He didn't even get a proper goodbye. One day, he received an envelope in the mail. Inside, their wedding rings. No note, no explanation, just rings. Imagine that. Years of love, commitment, shared memories, reduced to a postal delivery. Friends say Trevor was devastated, blindsided, humiliated. How do you even tell people your wife ended your marriage by FedEx? And that, my friends, is when Trevor realized the truth. He wasn't her forever. He was her stepping stone. Now let's zoom out. Because Trevor's story isn't just about a failed marriage, it's about a pattern. Think about it. Meghan didn't simply drift from Trevor when Suits took off. She started pulling away from almost everyone. College friends who'd once been bridesmaids, quietly cut off. Hollywood colleagues she'd leaned on during the lean years, edged out. Even some of her longtime confidants, people who thought they were permanent fixtures in her inner circle, suddenly found themselves on the outside looking in. And then came Prince Harry. That was the final purge. Overnight, the small circle she still had left was gone. Old friends? Ghosted. Extended family? Vanished. The Meghan who had once been hustling to land a Hallmark gig was gone too. In her place stood the Duchess-in-waiting, laser-focused on her new role, her new brand, her new crown. Trevor insists none of this surprised him, because in his eyes, Meghan had always been strategic. Relationships weren't built on sentiment, they were built on utility. If you could help her climb, you were indispensable. But if you couldn't, you were expendable. And doesn't that sound eerily familiar? Critics argue it's exactly how she operated inside the royal family. At first, she was all smiles and handshakes, playing the part, soaking in the adoration, standing beside the Queen herself. But when the crown didn't bend the way she wanted, when the institution didn't give her the starring role she believed she deserved, she turned cold. The palace, the press, even her own in-laws, everyone was either an ally to be leveraged or an obstacle to be discarded. Which raises the uncomfortable question, was Trevor Engelson just the first in a long line of people to learn what it feels like to be cut from Meghan's script? And let's not forget Meghan's family. For years, we've heard about her strained relationship with her father, Thomas Markle, and her half-siblings. The palace PR line has always been that Meghan was protecting herself from toxic relatives. But Trevor says the distance started long before the tabloids. He remembers Meghan rarely speaking of her family in glowing terms. She often framed herself as the exception, the one who rose above. In Trevor's eyes, it wasn't about being pushed away. Meghan actively positioned herself above them, and when they no longer fit her brand, she left them behind. The irony, that's exactly what happened to Trevor. Now here's where it gets downright cinematic. Friends of Trevor swear Meghan literally had a vision board, an actual roadmap of her life tacked up for all to see. Not just vague daydreams, but bullet points, goals, and deadlines. A checklist that reads less like a love story and more like a PR strategy. Marry a Hollywood producer. Check. Land a breakout role. Check. Network with the right people, climb the right ladders, be photographed in the right rooms. Check. And at the very top, written in bold letters so large it couldn't be missed, be iconic. That wasn't just ambition, it was branding. Meghan wasn't trying to build a home or even a marriage. She was constructing something bigger, Meghan Markle. A polished persona, curated for the spotlight, engineered for the world stage. And Trevor? In hindsight, it's clear he was never the destination, he was a stepping stone. A supporting role in the pilot episode of Meghan's long-running series. The Hollywood husband gave her credibility, the industry connections, and the sheen of insider status. But once she'd checked his box on the board, once his role in the script had been played, he was cut from the story. Like an actor written out of a show mid-season, Trevor didn't even see it coming. To him, it was a marriage. To Meghan, it was a storyline, and that chapter had reached its end. Here's the part that stings the most for Trevor. After Meghan's transformation into the Duchess of Sussex, her first marriage wasn't just left in the past, it was practically erased. In glossy magazine spreads, Netflix specials, and carefully curated interviews, the Trevor years are brushed aside like an awkward typo. At best, it's framed as a youthful detour, a warm-up act before the real love story began with Prince Harry. But Trevor knows better. He remembers the grind, the auditions that ended in rejection, the nights she came home defeated, questioning her path. He remembers paying the bills, picking her up when the phone didn't ring, telling her she was meant for bigger things when no one else believed it. He wasn't a footnote, he was the foundation. The scaffolding that held her dreams in place until she could climb higher. And that's what makes the silence cut so deep. To Trevor, those 7 years weren't disposable. They were real. They were married. They were sacrifice and partnership. But to Meghan's narrative machine, they were inconvenient. And inconvenient chapters don't get told, they get buried. Yet here's the irony. The more Meghan tries to polish her story into a flawless fairy tale, the more the cracks show. Because the past has a way of clawing back. And Trevor, quiet, overlooked Trevor, is starting to find his voice. His version of events doesn't sound like a blip. It sounds like a warning. And here's where things get almost eerie. Trevor's story with Meghan? Meet someone established, benefit from their status, then move on once she feels bigger. Does that sound familiar? Because critics argue Meghan's royal chapter played out the same way. Dazzled by the crown at first, reveling in the privileges, then recasting herself as the victim of the very system she married into. And once the royals no longer fit her narrative, she slammed the door, rewrote the story, and turned it into her own PR campaign. Trevor's account doesn't just expose a failed marriage. It offers a blueprint for everything that came after. So why is Trevor speaking up now, after years of silence? For more than a decade, he kept his distance. He rebuilt his life, remarried, had a child, and focused on producing films. In Hollywood, where reputation is currency, blasting your ex can brand you as bitter, even toxic. And Trevor was too smart for that. Better to keep quiet, keep working, and let the tabloids chase someone else's scandals. But now, the winds have shifted. Meghan's once untouchable brand has started to wobble. Spotify pulled the plug. Netflix, once her golden ticket, is teetering. Public sympathy has thinned as whispers of overexposure and hypocrisy swirl. For Trevor, the risk that once kept him silent no longer looms as large. If anything, the timing looks almost poetic. Because now the world isn't just curious, it's skeptical. The Meghan Markle myth, polished and packaged, suddenly has cracks. And Trevor holds the pieces no one else can offer. The unvarnished Meghan before the palace, before the cameras, before the carefully curated Duchess persona. So is it vindication? Maybe. Is it closure? Possibly. Or maybe it's something more primal, the chance to reclaim his place in the story Meghan tried to erase. Because for years he was written out. And now he's writing himself back in. And here's the kicker. When Trevor talks, people listen. Not because he's chasing headlines, but because he's the one man who knew Meghan Markle before the world did. And so we circle back to a beachfront wedding in Jamaica, to two people who thought they were building a life together, to an envelope in the mail that ended it all. Trevor Engelson's story isn't just a bitter ex airing dirty laundry. It's a reminder that patterns matter, that the way someone treats their past often predicts how they'll treat their future. And in Meghan Markle's case, the Hollywood chapter wasn't separate from the royal one. It was the dress rehearsal. The script had already been written. Because sometimes the past doesn't just haunt you. Sometimes it explains you. So what do you think? Was Trevor just a stepping stone in Meghan's grand plan? Or did she walk away from her best shot at real love? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this story is only getting started. And trust me, the next bombshell is just around the corner. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest twists in the royal soap opera we call real life.